All right. So those are the objectives that we'll be covering. Right now, this is the definition part again. So when you look at the meaning of economics, it's basically the study of production, consumption, and transfer of wealth. Right now, you may produce a lot of things, right, which you sell, but at the same time, you need to consume something. So that is related to your consumption. So the net difference between these two will tell you how much wealth you have, right? So economy is nothing but the state of country or region in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money, right? So production, demand needs, consumption, supply fills others, right? So it is basically what you need to look at is the production and consumption, and as a result of that, what you get, the money output from that, which reflects the wealth of your nation. So that is your economy, right? So this is a very simple layman's term explaining what economy is. Okay, so it's a social science. It's nothing to do with engineering, but it affects us. So that is why we need to basically know something that is what you call that the fundamental part of the economic. We are not going to dive very deep into the concepts of economy. Just the fundamental part is enough, so that we will understand what is GDP, what is GNI, how taxes work, and so on, so that we can apply that in our engineering projects later on, right? So it's engaged in production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Goal is to predict economic occurrence and to develop policies that might prevent or correct such problems, such as unemployment, inflation, or waste in the economy, right? So there are two parts of it. One, you look at the macroeconomic. Macroeconomic means on the overall idea. The other one is in the microeconomic, right? So this is basically looking in the individual part, all right? So on a one-to-one level. So these are some of the things that you should know, right? So I will leave this to you all to read, right? So there are two vantage points from which economy is observed. One is the macro. So macroeconomic looks at the total output of a nation, right? So what we report every quarterly. So you will see that, recently we have breached almost $2 trillion in terms of trade, right? So that is actually something positive. And our export market has, what you call that, gone up by more than 25%. So that is also something that is positive to the economy, right? Because we are exporting more than we import. So when you do that, you are making more money, which translates to more wealth for your country, right? So that is on the macroeconomic. Now, microeconomic is different, but this one is looking at the level of individual people and firms within the company. So it tends to be more specific on its approach and studies the part that make up the whole economy, right? So analyzing certain aspects of human behavior. So you can see that individuals and firms respond to changes in price and why they demand that they do at a particular price levels. So these two plays an important role in determining your economic health of a country, right? Now, there are a lot of problems associated with economics. So you can have generalizing from individual experiences. So you can have coming to a point where you come out with the wrong conclusions. So this is called fallacy of composition. So 8 principles of economics, individual becoming richer by increasing his savings. Now, if you look at today's scenario, the fixed rate for your fixed deposit is less than 2%. So you are not going to become rich by increasing your saving. In fact, the government is discouraging you from saving. So in 97, our fixed deposit rate was almost about 9% per year, per annum. And in today's scenario, it's only about 1.6%. So you cannot become rich by increasing your saving, right? So this is generalizing from individual experiences. Sometimes you can have bias based on that. right? So the fact that one economic event precedes another does not necessarily simply cause the effect, which is what economics wants to study. No? So if you look at the 1929 US stock market collapse, did not cause the worldwide Great Depression of the 1930s, right? So that is one example that you can have. So since economics is a social science and laboratory experiments cannot be conducted, economic theories can describe expected behavior. So you can't do any experimental work on it, but you can come up with theories to explain the behavior, all right, on how the market is going to perform or how the market is going to behave, right? So it's not a precise thing, it's not a reliable thing, but you will see that most famous economics, they tend to come out with theories that are basically reliable and they can actually predict what's going to happen, right? But most of the time they fail because there are many other factors that they could not include in, right? So to understand the world better, right, why we need to study economic is you will begin to understand the cause of many of the things that affect your life. Now, once you start working, you will need to buy a house, you will need to buy a car, and you need to start a family. And you will see that, when you buy a car, you have a certain mortgage that you need to settle, certain interest rates that you need to service. Similarly with the house as well, right? So why do they charge that percentage? Why not more? Why not less? Right? So that will give you an understanding. So in terms of economic. Now to gain self-confidence, then once you know what is economy, what are the associated methodologies that they use to come out with the terms that they use in the economics, then you will have that confidence, that you know what's happening around you. Okay. So the social change is also there to help prepare for other careers. Now, in Malaysia, it is picking up, but in many countries, engineers are very, very sought after by investment bankers, right? Especially in the US and Europe, also in Australia. Now, the reason why engineers are sought after by investment bankers is because we have this analytical mind. So we can analyze data and capture pattern, and then from those pattern we can reach to a conclusion. So a lot of these investment bankers, they like to hire engineers as their what you call that data analysts. Okay, so you will see that once you've understood economics, you'll be able to discover a wide range of careers, deal with economic issues on many levels. So that's one option, right? So to become an economist, you'll begin to develop a body of knowledge that could lead you to become economics in the future, right? Of course, you are going to be an engineer, but if you know the economy, then you can become a better engineer because whatever decisions that you make, right, in terms of profit and loss, you will make a better decision because based on your knowledge in economy, you can then decide whether to proceed with the project at that particular period of time or to cut it down, scale it down, and so on, right? So these are some of the things, right? People need to study economics to learn the economics way of thinking, to understand how men make choices in the presence of scarcity. Scarcity means with very limited resources, right? And then you must also understand why people are ready to pay more for petroleum, but not for a biscuit packet, right? So if you are traveling every day, those who are working adults, they have to go from their house to work in a car. So if the petrol price goes up, they don't mind paying for it. But if they go and get some biscuit packets and the biscuit packet price goes up or roti canai price goes up, they get very angry, right? So this one is to understand the working of markets, right? Then you may also, if you study economics, to understand how the economic works, people make rational choices. Demand will be higher if the cost is less. Yet when the price of gold or stock increases, the demand also increases, right? So this particularly you will see with gold, right? So this is to know how Reserve Bank institution. So Reserve Bank, ours is Bank Negara Malaysia. So RBI functions, how government make decisions about new policies and acts, and then to understand society, right? you will see that, through economics, why some countries are rich, why some countries are poor, right? So at the moment, you can say that Singapore is one of the richest country in the world. You may question why, right? You may question why, even though their economy is only about $350 billion. But when you compare it to China, which is about $15 trillion, Singapore is still richer than China, right? Well, why is that so? So why US is called developed and India is a developing nation, right? So these are the two things that you can actually answer based on your knowledge in economics, okay? So to understand society, why some countries are rich and poor, okay, this one done. To understand what is poverty, right, and what measures must be taken to reduce it. To understand current global affair, like why Barbie dolls are made in China. Why did Greece crisis occur? What is India and China's role in the world economy? So you must remember, India and China both constitutes almost about 3-point-something billion population, both of this country, right? And they are combined middle class, right? Their combined middle class is about 1 billion people. So in other words, if they manufacture anything in their country, they don't need to sell it to any other nation. They can survive on their own, right? So what is their role in the world economy? You'll be able to understand that. And then to be an informed citizen, why did the Great Depression occur? Why there was a recession after 2008, right? So is there another recession coming in? So you can then plan accordingly, right? Because if there is a recession coming in next year, then it will be trouble for you. Because then it's going to be hard for you to get jobs, okay? You need to understand why the fuel prices changes so frequently. So at the moment, I believe the RON 97 is almost 4 ringgit and 30 cents, whereas RON 95 is only about 2 ringgit something. So why is there such a big fluctuation? So is the RON 97 the actual representation of the market price of oil? And RON 95 is still about 2 ringgit because of subsidy being paid by the government. So you should be able to understand that. So it helps you to choose your life's occupation. You will know why you are employed or unemployed, okay? So if your economy is doing well, jobs will be plenty. But if the economy is not doing well, then you will see that you will have a lot of unemployment, okay? So it's a subject of inquiry. It develops good analytical skill and problem solving skills. Knowingly or unknowingly, we use economics in our daily routine. From whichever walk of life you come, you will need economics to understand the concept of society. So everything is related to economics. So even you are studying in UITM, right? Why they take in so many students, why you can have only so many students in a certain batch. So that is also due to economics as well, okay? So that was on just a slight introduction. So now we'll just go through a video here. Just a minute. Let me unshare and share back again. All right, I'm going to play this video. Let's see whether we can.
I'm Jacob Clifford, and I'm the host of Crash Course Economics. Stan!
Can you hear the video?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So just watch this video for a while. Then we will continue.
Your team, your co-host.
Oh,
all right,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, anyways, we're making our Crash Course Economics series at the YouTube space in lovely Los Angeles, California, because Mr. Clifford and I are both from Southern California.
Yeah.
Who are these no-names?
Where are the Green brothers?
Ugh.
If there aren't any Greens, I'm unsubscribing.
How can you unsubscribe? What is this, some kind of a moving newspaper?
Did we just get heckled by the Muppets?
Sounds like it.
Hey guys, listen, don't feel bad about not being green, okay?
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Hi guys, listen, being green is great and everything, but being Adrian and Mr. Clifford, well, that's great too. And in fact, you know, guys, it's not easy being green. I think I could sing a song about that.
Can I sing with you?
Of course,
This is a
yeah,
dream.
yeah,
This is a dream.
No. We can't afford the licensing agreement for that song, guys.
Oh.
Economics.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, Okay, well, in that case, why don't you guys just introduce yourselves?
Okay. I'm Mr. Clifford, and I'm a high school economics teacher and YouTuber. I'm going to focus on teaching you the theories and graphs of economics. You know, the textbook stuff.
And I'm Adrienne Hill. I'm a senior reporter for the public radio show Marketplace, and I'm going to focus on showing you the real world applications of economics. You know, the good stuff, the really fun stuff.
Hey, we're both fun. We're definitely not going to teach economics like this.
Welcome to Crash Course Economics. I am thrilled to be teaching you this fascinating subject.
I'm sorry, Professor Honeydew, but that's why people hate economics in high school and college.
Anyway, Statler and Waldorf have a point. The most important question in economics is, where's John Green? I mean, everyone knows he won a bronze medal in economics at the Alabama State Academic Decathlon. Well, John Green isn't hosting because economics. We'll explain later.
So let's start with the basics. What is economics? Well, it might be easy to determine what economics isn't. Economics is not the study of money or getting rich, although understanding economics can help with that. Economics is not the study of the stock market. It's just not. And economics is not primarily about men in bow ties forecasting what will happen in a given market or the overall economy. Actually, a few economists do that, but that's not the main focus of economics. Economics is the study of people and choices. The famous economist Alfred Marshall defined economics as a study of man
and woman
in the ordinary business of life. It inquires how he gets his income and how he uses it. Thus, it is on the one side the study of wealth, and the other, more important side, a part of the study of man.
and woman.
So let's talk a minute about what else econ is. Economics is an 18-year-old deciding whether to work or go to college and how that affects her future income. Economics is a company deciding whether to produce smartphones or tablets and how that's influenced by what we consumers want to buy. Economics is the government deciding whether to increase its spending when there's a recession and if it's worth going into debt. So despite what you might think, economics is not boring and dull. Okay, some of it is, but it's not all like that. I promise, it's awesome. Understanding econ can forever change the way you think and problem solve. Our job over the next 40 weeks is to teach you concepts that will help you understand the world and hopefully make it a better place. No matter who you are, you will be using economics. In fact, you are using econ right now. You made a choice to watch this video. That means you must feel that the benefit outweighs the cost. You might be thinking, this is YouTube, there's no cost. But sure there is. You could be watching videos of kittens or skaters falling on their face or Charlie biting fingers. Oh! The cost of watching this video is the video you're not watching, the value of the next best alternative. Economists call this your opportunity cost. If you're still watching this video, it means that you believe it's the best use of your time, or you wouldn't be watching it. But what if I'm watching this at school? You ask, what if I'm forced to watch this? Well, you weren't forced to go to school. You could ditch, you could drop out, you could move to a country that doesn't have compulsory education. But the cost would outweigh the benefit. Even if you are at school, you're not forced to watch the video. You could close your eyes or put your head down. No one's gonna pry your eyes open. That'd be creepy. Now let's talk about why John Green isn't here teaching this course. John is an entrepreneur. He writes books, runs DFTBA, Vlogbrothers, and Mental Floss, and creates movies, but he can't do everything he wants to do. He looked at the benefits and costs of his choices, and in the end, decided to spend more time writing books. So Mr. Clifford and I are jumping in to teach you economics.
And believe it or not, we just covered the two most important assumptions in all of economics. First, the idea of scarcity. People have unlimited wants but limited resources. And second, everything, I mean everything, has a cost. And if these assumptions are true, then we need a way to analyze our choices and get the most from our limited resources. And that's economics.
Wait, but let's go back to the idea of benefits and costs. About 30,000 people a year die in car accidents in the US. Is there a way to ensure there will never be another traffic fatality? Yes, we can crush all the cars, close the roads, and force everyone to walk. That would solve the car crash problem. Do you want to decrease the number of people convicted of murder? You could decriminalize murder. You want to end the unethical treatment of elephants? You could kill off all the elephants in an ethical way, of course. But before you decide to tenderly euthanize herds of beautiful elephants, think about it for a second. Each of these solutions is absurd because the cost clearly outweighs the benefit. Traffic fatalities are tragic, but we don't prevent them at all costs. You know that driving has risk, that you might get in a car accident, but you still drive. Why? Well, first, who's going to walk to the gym? And walking home with heavy groceries in the rain is way worse than the teeny tiny chance of dying in a car crash. The point is, individuals, businesses, and countries can't have everything. So they're forced to weigh the benefits and costs of their decisions and make choices. Let's look at another example. Military spending in the United States is over $600 billion per year. That's close to what the next top 10 countries spend combined. There are a total of about 20 active aircraft carriers in the world today, and the U.S. has half of them, and it's building more. The opportunity cost of those aircraft carriers could be hospitals, schools, and roads. So is the U.S. spending too much on the military? Should the U.S. focus on making guns or butter? That is, weapons or consumer goods?
And notice the key word here is or. We can't produce an infinite amount of weapons and consumer goods because we don't have an infinite amount of workers and farms and factories and raw materials. Scarcity means we must make a choice. The American president Dwight D. Eisenhower explained this best in 1953 in a speech about Cold War military buildup. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those that are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It's spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. And this is a good time to mention the role of politics in economics. We're not pushing some liberal anti-military policy here. We're just pointing out that military spending has an opportunity cost. The resources not being used for social services like feeding the hungry. We're going to try not to push a political agenda on you. We're going to show you both sides and let you decide which one's best. So please don't say Mr. Clifford loves capitalism, so he's just a pro-business conservative, or Adrian's talking about environmental regulation, so she's an anti-business liberal. Yeah, we are pro-business, and you are too. I mean, where do you think your computer came from? That computer was brought to you by capitalism and the private sector. But that being said, the security and laws, roads, and that traffic ticket you got the other day came from the government. Conservatives and liberals fight over the details, but the free market alone can't solve all of our problems. And the government can't solve all of them either. Government officials use economic theories to guide public policy, and their effects are widespread and affect billions of people. Sometimes the theory is flawed, but many times the policy is flawed. Economists suggest policies based on theories supported by data and understanding of incentives. Having the right incentive is key.
But the right incentives can be hard to figure out. Take, for example, public colleges and universities. Many of them used to get state money for each student they enrolled. That meant universities had financial incentives to focus on recruiting as many students as possible, but not actually helping them succeed once they were in class. So states have started changing the incentives. Now more and more states reward schools for the number of students that complete courses or earn degrees. And in some places this has worked. It's helped schools increase their graduation rates by shifting money from marketing budgets to programs to help students do better. But those incentives can also backfire if they're poorly designed. A university that gets money for graduates could push students through the program without giving them a good education. It might want to admit only students who come in with super high test scores, instead of considering other factors that might make them good candidates. It might push students into less rigorous majors. But incentives can help solve problems without adding more resources. You just have to get the incentives right. Many non-economists assume that the way to improve things like healthcare is to spend more money. Economists would point out that the U.S. already spends almost twice as much per person as other rich countries, and in many cases, they get worse health outcomes. Economists would also say that rather than spending more money, we need to make sure that insurers, hospitals, doctors, and patients have incentives to produce the most effective care possible at the lowest cost possible. The point is, if you mess up the incentives, the policy's not going to work. When Vietnam was under French colonial rule, the regime issued a bounty on rats to exterminate them, giving money to people for handing in rat tails. I guess because piles of rat bodies were too gross. The plan backfired. To make as much money as possible, the rat catchers cut the tails off the rats and released them, allowing them to make baby rats. The policy actually increased the rat population. It made things worse. We'll talk more about this idea of perverse incentives in another video when we talk about the 2008 financial crisis. Again. For now, let's go to the thought bubble.
Speaking of 2008, people sometimes criticize economists asking, why didn't they predict the 2008 financial crisis, or why can't they agree on what the government should do or shouldn't do when there's a recession? These criticisms fail to distinguish between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Specifically, all these complaints are about macroeconomics. Macro studies the economy as a whole. It looks at the whole nation's output, unemployment, inflation, interest rates, government spending, and growth. Macro answers questions like, will unemployment rise if there's an increase in taxes? Will an increase in the money supply boost output or just increase inflation? Will a slump in European economies cause the U.S. economy to slow down? Macroeconomists get more airtime because they predict the direction of the overall economy and work with the media and businesses and Congress and the Federal Reserve. But less than half of all economists are macroeconomists. There's a whole other side of economics that look at different questions. How many workers should we hire to maximize profit? If our main competitor releases their product in May, when's the best time to release our product? And which is better for fighting climate change, a gas tax or increase in fuel efficiency? These are all microeconomic questions. They're not about predicting GDP or measuring unemployment, but they are crucial questions that economists must answer. Also, if you don't know what GDP is or what a high or low unemployment rate is, don't worry, we'll get there. So macro and microeconomists are two different groups asking different questions under one academic umbrella. If economics was biology, macroeconomics would be ecology, while micro would be cell biology. If economics was physics, macro would be cosmology and relativity, while microeconomics would be Newtonian mechanics. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Stan, I've always wanted to say that, and I can cross off my bucket list. Now I've ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, arm wrestle Ben Bernanke, and swim in a giant pool of money like Uncle Scrooge.
Obviously, we're glossing over the details, but we promise to cover everything in the next 40 weeks. From supply and demand to monetary policy, we'll cover it all, except for maybe the giant pools of money. We can't promise you that learning economics will make you wealthy, but we can promise that learning economics will enlighten your mind and make you a more informed decision maker. And that makes us all better off. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Crash Course Economics. It was made with the help of all these nice people. They work on the show because there's financial and implicit benefits that cover their opportunity cost. Now, if you want to help them with those financial benefits,
that was a video on the introduction of economics, right? Now, similarly, there are two more videos here, but I will leave that to you. You can actually go through it on your own. Is it okay? So I don't have to play it here. Can someone respond? All right, thank you. So that is on that. And then supply and demand. So we have, seen that in the video. So demand here, it refers to how much, all right, quantity of a product or service is desired by the buyers, right? The quantity demanded is the amount of product people are willing to buy at a certain price. So the relationship between price and quantity demanded is known as the demand relationship. Next, we go to supply, because these two are basically interrelated, all right? So in economy, it's all about demand and supply issue. So supply represents how much the market can offer. The quantity supply refers to the amount of certain good producers are willing to supply when receiving a certain price, right? So correlation between price and how much of a good or service is supplied to the market is known as the supply relationship. So price, therefore, is a reflection of the supply and demand. So if your demand is high and your supply is high, so your price will not be affected. But if your supply is low, but your demand is high, just like now what's happening to our cooking oil, palm cooking oil. Now, palm cooking oil, if you go to a supermarket, one big bottle of 5 kg is almost 50 ringgit now. Now, you won't believe that it used to be about 13, 15 ringgit only. So the reason why it has gone up so much is because of the demand and supply issue. The demand is very high, but the supply is not enough to meet the demand. So as a result, the price goes up. So that's one example. Okay. So the relationship between demand and supply underlie the forces behind the allocation of resources. So in market economy theories, demand and supply theory will allocate resources in the most efficient way possible, right? So you can look at the the law of demand and the law of supply. Okay. So this is the law of demand, law of supply. So you will see that the y-axis here gives you the price, and then this gives you the quantity. Okay. So if your quantity is less, right? So this is the demand relationship. You will see that your price is definitely higher. But if your quantity is more, right? If you have more, then based on this demand relationship, you will see that your price will be much lower, right? So the demand schedule for an individual specifies the unit of good or services that the individual is willing and able to purchase. Okay, so it is inverse. The relationship between price and quantity is inverse. More units are purchased at lower prices because of substitution effect and an income effect, right? So that is quite normal. If you have more of something, you can definitely sell it at a cheaper price. Okay, so that is the theory based on law of demand. Okay, so you can look into this. So it tells you based on what I've already explained to you that if you can have quantify it and then have a bigger number, definitely that bigger number will be able to sell at a lower price. But if it's a lower quantity, then definitely the price is going to be much higher. Okay, so this is a law of supply, right? So you can look at this. This will be different than what is your law of demand. The supply curve normally has a positive upward slope, indicating the producer must receive a higher price for an increased output due to the principle of increasing cost. All right, a market supply curve is derived by summing the units each individual producer is willing to supply at alternative prices. Okay, so this is your supply relationship. As you can see here, this is different. At a lower quantity, price is lower. At a higher quantity, it goes up. Right? At another higher quantity, the price goes up. So this is based on supply relationship, right? Based on the law of supply. So a bit different than your law of demand. Okay. So these are some of the curves, market supply curves that you have, right? So this is again based on some economic data that you have. Now what we want to do is, when you have this line and this line, you want to look for a place where you can reach an equilibrium, right, between the supply and also between the demand. Okay. So equilibrium occurs at the intersection of the market supply and market demand curves. So at this intersection, quantity demanded equals to quantity supplied. Okay. So for an example, the quantity that individuals are willing to produce exactly equals the quantity producers are willing to supply. So a surplus exists at prices higher than the equilibrium price. At prices lower than the equilibrium price, there will be shortage. Right, so this is some simple economic theory that you can actually have a look. Right, so that is on the equilibrium. So this is, you can have a look here. So if you are over this side of the point above the equilibrium, so this will reflect to excess supply. So if you are below here, then this will refer to your excess demand. So equilibrium is of course where both the lines, they meet with each other. So this is what you have, an example, you can have a look. Okay, so a change in demand refers to a shift of the demand curve because variable other than price has changed. A change in quantity demanded occurs when there is a change in commodities price, right? So that is that. So price movements, you can see here how the price changes, right, on the demand curve, and movement along the supply curve is also can be observed here. Okay. So movement caused by only change in price. So reduce the price and demand will increase, right? Just like how you see in Jasco sale. So people usually go for sales because they see that you get more with the money that you put in there. So because it's cheaper, so you tend to buy more things. So reduce in price in market and supply demand shall decrease. So these are the discounted items due to low demand. So example, you can see the chinchao soya and so on, right? So these are some of the things that you can actually have a look. So price shift. So this happens when one variable changes. So then your curve shifts, right? So your curve shifts up. So this is change in demand and therefore there's a shift in demand curve. So for an example, the market demand curve shifts up and to the right when there is an increased preference of the commodity, when income increases, and when the price of substitute commodity rises and the price of complementary good declines, right? So this is how the price shifts up, okay? Right, so that is on the supply, demand, and so on. Now we go for competition. What is monopoly, oligopoly, and perfect competition? Right, so I will just show you one video before we proceed. Perhaps maybe I show you the monopoly one, so that you'll get an idea on what is it about.
How will you know monopoly if you see one? Think back to the characteristics. There will be a single seller, someone who sells a product for which there are no close substitutes, and there are significant barriers to entry, barriers that are so high, in fact, that no other producers can enter the industry. What kinds of barriers could there be that would keep competitors out? Patents would keep others out, at least until the patent expired, or unless you sell the right to use the idea to other people. Sole ownership of a key resource would prevent competition. For example, if you're a large bookstore that owns the only book distributor, then there's not really any way for other bookstores to get inventory. What about costs? Extremely high costs will keep many other producers out. In fact, in the case of extraordinarily high fixed costs, you can get a situation where economies of scale kick in, and you're actually better off to have only one producer. Look, think about power generation plants. It not only costs about $1 gazillion to build the plant itself, but then you need the power grid, all those towers and lines to deliver the electricity. So if there's just one company incurring all those upfront costs, that firm can spread the costs out over a large quantity of production, and the cost per unit ends up being very low. But if you break this company up, creating 10 smaller firms that would compete with each other, each firm must repeat these initial costs, yet has only 1/10 of the customers in this example. Cost per unit ends up being very high. In a case like this, with huge economies of scale, it's actually more efficient to have only one producer as a natural outcome of the cost structure. This would be a natural monopoly. With a natural monopoly, the enormous fixed costs dominate, so that effectively the average total cost curves look like what we're accustomed to seeing in an average fixed cost curve. The more you produce, the lower the cost per unit. This type of monopoly is the exception, though, and not the rule. Okay, enough about the atypical monopoly. What does the typical monopoly look like? First of all, because the monopoly is the only seller of the product, anyone who wants to buy the product must buy from the monopoly. This means that the demand faced by the monopolist is the entire industry or market demand. What does marginal revenue look like? To figure that out, let's look at a basic demand schedule. As my prices drop, the quantity that I can sell rises. I need to calculate total revenue before I can calculate marginal revenue, which I do by multiplying the price per unit times the number of units. Then I can address marginal revenue, or the amount of additional revenue I generate by selling another unit. Since I had no revenue when my output was 0, the marginal revenue of my first unit is plus $10. The second unit adds $8 to revenue, the third adds $6, and so on. Notice that, unlike perfect competition, the marginal revenue figures are less than the prices. If I plot out the numbers for demand and marginal revenue, you can see the contrast. I use the price and quantity figures to plot demand, and the marginal revenue and quantity figures to plot the marginal revenue curve. So I know that generally demand and marginal revenue look like this. To determine the monopolist's chosen output, though, I need to be able to find the output at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost, so I also need to add a marginal cost curve. Because marginal cost looks the same no matter what the market structure is, all I need to do is add our usual J-shaped marginal cost curve to the existing diagram. Now I can see the monopolist's profit maximizing output, Q star. Okay, this part is important. We don't know the monopolist's price yet. To find it, you have to remember that this producer can raise the price as high as the consumers are willing to pay. Since the demand reflects the buyer's willingness to pay, I go up to the demand curve to see what price I can get for these Q star units of output. If Q star is the monopolist's profit maximizing output and P star is the price that can be charged for that output, what's the monopolist's profit? Well, we don't really know, do we? We're still missing the average cost curves, which need to be added in order to determine the amount of profit. Look, let's say you want to show a monopolist who's earning a positive profit. This means that the price must be higher than the cost per unit. In this case, remember that price times quantity yields your total revenue in green, and average total cost times quantity gives your total cost in red. The remaining area that I have here in blue is the firm's profit. What happens to the monopoly's profit in the long run? I mean, if a competitive firm makes a profit in the short run, then over time, other firms enter and profits go to 0. So what happens to the monopolist's profit? Nothing happens. Remember the barriers to entry? Those barriers keep competitors out, protecting the monopolist's profit. Does a monopolist necessarily earn profit? No, just because you're the only producer of something doesn't guarantee you'll earn a profit. If the cost per unit exceeds the price, you'll be losing money just like any other business owner. What'll happen in the long run? Any producer who's losing money in the short run will get out in the long run, taking his or her resources elsewhere. Where does this leave the industry? If this producer leaves, there is no industry. One last thing about monopoly. Why do so many people consider the monopolist to be the bad guy? This is just a producer trying to maximize profits like any other producer. Well, here's the thing. Most people are opposed to a monopoly because they prefer the alternative, competition. Look back at the monopolist. Now, if this were a competitive market instead, remember that in a competitive market, the market supply and the market demand determine the price and quantity. We know already that the monopoly faces the industry or market demand. Where's the industry supply? The marginal cost curve, as long as we're above that minimum average variable cost, is the monopoly supply. And since the monopolist is the only supplier, it's also the industry supply. The intersection of the industry supply and industry demand yield the price and quantity that we'd see if this were a perfectly competitive market. Why do people consider the monopolist to be the bad guy? Because the monopolist charges more and provides less product. The people who don't like the monopolist are the consumers who would rather see the lower prices and greater quantities associated with a competitive market. Next time, regulation.
Doctor, are you talking?
Yes, yes. Thanks. I switched on my mic. Can you hear me now?
Yes, doctor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So as what you've seen from the video, so monopoly here means it's basically something that you are only one who is controlling the resources, right, or the raw material, right? So it can be due to the there is no what you call that competition for you, right? So may result of increasing returns to scale. So maybe control over the supply of raw materials, you have patents, government franchise. So natural monopolies usually operate under government franchise. So as you can see, TNB is a GLC. So they operate under the what you call that regulations under the government. So under pure monopoly, the firm is the industry, faces negatively sloped industry demand, right? So as a result, if monopolist wants to sell more of the commodity, it must lower its price, right? So that is one of the things. Next is you will see that. So these are some of the examples that you have, all right? When you look at perfect competition, so we have, examples like Giant, Tesco, Carrefour. So these are the, what do you call that, supermarkets that you have, basically selling the same stuff, right? But they compete with each other. Okay, so they compete with each other. So they are called perfect competition. And so even the Johnson & Johnson together with GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, so they sell products related to hygiene and also sometimes pharmacies. So they can also sell similar products, right? But they are not monopolizing it. So they can have a perfect competition then, right? Now, oligopoly here means only a few firms make up an industry, right? So they control over the price, still with high barriers to entry, products often nearly identical, just like your Cellcom, Maxis and DG. So these are, we call oligopoly, right? And they are actually interdependent due to your market forces, right? So sometimes you will be with Cellcom, sometimes you change with Maxis because they provide you with better services, or sometimes you change to Digi because they provide you with more return for the same money. Okay. Now monopoly is what we have seen, right? So TNB is one of the best monopoly example that we can have for Malaysia. Okay. So that was on perfect competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. Now we go for GNI, GDP, GNP, GST, and tax. So we look at what is this. Now these videos I will leave it to you. You can actually watch it on your own, right, during your free time. Now we go through very quickly what is GDP. GDP is gross domestic product. Now GNP is gross national product, right? So GDP here means equals to the total value of goods and services producers produce added to the value of income received from other nation. So it is the total number of payments made to foreign nations is deducted from production and income. So your output measure, which is your goods and services, expenditure measure, household and government, and income measure, which is your profit and wages. Okay. So if you have this is a point here. If you have 3 positive consecutive GDP means that country's economy is growing. Negative value is the opposite, and 2 consecutive 3-month periods of contraction means economy is in recession. So far our GDP has been growing. So at 5%, 4%, and so on. So we are still not in recession yet, but you will see that there are many countries they are already experiencing recession. So if you want to measure a country's economy, one of the best measurement tool is your gross domestic product, right? It's the total value of everything produced by all the people and companies in the country. It doesn't matter if they are citizens of foreign-owned companies. If they are located within the country's boundaries, the government count their production as GDP, right? So you will see that what is gross domestic product, government spending, net exports, and all those things that is being produced. So how to calculate? So it's given here, right? So the components of GDP are your personal consumption, expenditures plus business investment plus government spending plus export minus imports, right? So that is given here. So that is your formula, right? Consumption, right? Business investment, government spending plus export minus imports. Okay, so that is the formula. So what it tells you about the economy. So if your GDP is positive, then you say that, you know, the economy is growing. But if your GDP is in the negative region, then you can say that your economy is not growing, then you are going through a recession. So recession means you don't have what you call that proper growth in the economy. And as a result of that, it can cause inflation and it can also cause some sort of what you call that unemployment. Okay. So how it affects you? Definitely it affects you because all the economic indicators are basically based on your GDP. So if your GDP is positive throughout, okay, so the job markets will be healthy. So graduates who graduate from the universities will be able to be absorbed into jobs easily. So they will not struggle to find jobs. Okay, so that is one. And then the government will have enough resources to basically develop the country, right, without any hindrances in terms of funding, right? So those are some of the things. You don't have to cut your budget from many things. So just like in UITM, you will see that, you know, because earlier our economy was not doing very well, so we had a lot of budget cuts, right? Due to these budget cuts, you could not do many things, right? So these are some of the things. And the worst thing is if your GDP is not doing well, then you will have this problem called unemployment. So we don't want this, because unemployment, if people don't have jobs, how are you going to get the money to, you know, pay for the food that you want, and then pay for the mortgage that you have taken and all those things. So these are some of the things that you need to be aware of. Okay. So what will be the difference between GDP and GNP? So for the value of everything produced by a country's citizen, no matter where they are in the world, you should look at a gross national product, right? The World Bank now calculates gross national income instead, but the difference is insignificant, right? So main factors that influence GDP, these are the main factors, right? So your human resources. So you need to have skilled labor. So all of you are studying, you guys are going to be skilled. So you guys are going to go out as an engineer, right? We have a lot of vocational TVET institutions so that we can produce skilled labor. So that will provide a good human resource. We must have good natural resources. Malaysia is blessed with this. So that can help to boost our GDP further. Capital formation, right? So because you need to buy machinery, you need to buy tools and all those things. So you need to have capital for that. Technological development, that is why we have, HiCom to produce, what do you call that? Proton is basically a brainchild of HiCom because you needed those technological development for that. And social and political factors, right? Government needs to be stable. Socially, everyone needs to have this belief that, we can work together and start developing the country, right? So gross national income is called GNI. It's a measurement of country's income. It includes all the income earned by a country's resident and businesses, right? Including those earned abroad. So the difference is GNI measures all income of a country's resident, regardless where it's produced, in, out, Malaysia, doesn't matter. But GDP is only in the country alone, not outside, only in the country alone. So that is the difference, right? Then you have this called GNP, Gross National Product. It includes the earnings for all assets owned by residents, even includes those that does not flow back into the country. It then omits the earning of all foreigners living in the country, even if they spend it within the country. GNP only reports how much it earned by a country's citizen and businesses, no matter where it's spent in the world. So it's just a different way of calculating. Some with residents, some without the foreigners, some with in the country, and some with some which will include country and also the foreign resources that you have outside, right? So the differences are important because the World Bank actually looks into that, and then they will try to strategize whether the country is basically performing well in terms of economy or not, right? So if you look at GNI by country, the World Bank provides GNI data for all countries. So in order to compare incomes between countries, right? So it removes the effects of currency exchange rates, right? So you don't have to look into that. And then GNI per capita is a measurement of income divided by the number of people in the country, right? So this is looking into, let's say our Malaysia is about 33 million. So if your GNI is about 300 billion, then 300 billion divided by 32 million. So that will give you per capita income of that, right? So this is GNI or gross national income and GDP or gross domestic product are two economic terms that you will see when they announce budget. These are the two things that they will be mentioning again and again, right? So it helps you, right, to show the strength of a country's local income. On the other hand, GNI helps to show the economic strength of the citizens of a country, right? Of course, Americans will have a very high GNI, right, because they have resources everywhere. Okay, so these are the chart compares what is and isn't included in GDP, GNI, and GNP, right? So you can see here. So GDP, right? So CIGX, right? GNI, everything. So GNP is everything. So foreigners, we include, right? You include here in GNI if they spend, but here in GNP, we don't include them. Residents out of country, we don't include. Here is included. Here includes all. Foreigners out of country, no, no, and no. Okay. So those are some of the things that you should look at. So some formulas which you will be needing it. So these are some formulas that you can actually use to calculate out what is the GDP, total GDP, what is the GNI, and also what is the GNP, right? So those formulas are there for you. So this is Malaysia's GDP real growth rate. You will see here that in the 2001, our GDP was at 9%, and then it went down, right? And then slowly it is hovering around until 2009, roughly about 5 to 6%. Okay, so which is reasonably well, right? But we've been doing much better. I think in the late 80s, early 90s, we were hovering around 9–10%, right? So these are composition by sector. We will see that our agriculture is only about 10%. majority of our GDP is contributed by industry and services. So we have almost about 50% of our GDP comes from services. Services here means bank, insurance, right? Anything that where you provide services. Okay, so these are GDP again. You will see that for G20 countries, right? So Germany and all those things, right? So how their GDP is basically affected, how well they are doing, right? And when you compare them with Malaysia, you will see that ours, we have still a long way to go, right? So that is one. And then here is our, as I've mentioned, our GDP as of today, this is 2016. As of today is about 350 million. So around here, right? So this has been going up, right? So it has been average 83.26 USD from 1960 to 2016, reaching an all-time high of 338 billion and a record low of 1.9 USD billion in 1961, right? So this is how it's going up. So if you see an uptrend, that is of course a very good prospect for us. But if it goes down, then everyone suffers, right? So no one is left. So this one, you can actually go to Department of Statistics Malaysia, find out about our GDP value. Now we go to the tax. Now tax is something important because without tax, you don't have income for a country. So you need to tax everyone. So once you start working, if you hit a certain threshold, you will see that every month you will need to pay tax to the revenue board, income tax revenue board, right? Here is hasil. So it can be as high as, I think Malaysia maximum is about 24%, right? So you need money so to develop the country. So one way to get the money is through taxes, right? So this is a revenue. As I said, purpose of taxation is to get revenue. So we have stable growth. So to have growth, providing incentives within the tax system. So there are two types of taxes in Malaysia, direct and indirect. So direct means paid directly by those whom it is levied. So you have income tax, RPGT, stamp duty, petroleum income tax, and so on. Indirect, so you have sales tax, GST, service tax, and so on. So those are called indirect taxes, right? So characteristics of income. So these are all the characteristics, right? So class of income. So these are all the classes under the tax. So these are your chargeable income, right? So your gross income is what you get, adjusted income, statutory income, aggregate income, total income. And then finally, you will have the chargeable income where you will be charged a certain amount of tax, right? So why do we have taxes? As I said, in order to expand your economy, you need to have tax, because without tax, your economy will not be able to move. So it's basically your revenue, right, to develop the country. So these are all the points that you have, right? And then all our budget, if you look at it, is actually coming from there, right? So pengurusan to manage, this is, I think in 2017, we need about 200 plus billion. And then for development, we need about 46 billion. So this 46 billion, economy, social, and security, this is how it's divided, right? So jumlah keseluruhan for 2017, our budget was 260.18 billion, right? So this actually majority of it came from taxes. So once you got that, then you can actually, what you call that, if you have any surplus, and this is how you can actually help back the nation, help back everyone. Okay, so that is one. So tax system in Malaysia is, again, you have corporate tax. So as I've mentioned to you just now, 24% standard rate for corporate tax, right? Deductions, they are there, right? Other corporate taxes are also there. So you can actually read through that. So I leave this to you. So here, country comparison for corporate taxation. Malaysia, number of payments of taxes per year, 9. Here is 22.9, 10.6, Germany is 9. So total share is 40, 33.9, 44, 48. So we are still one of the lowest if you look at it, right? United States 44, Germany is almost about 50%. right? Residents and non-residents. So you pay taxes based on your individual taxes, and this is how much is paid. So this is for individual, it goes up to 28%, right? So those are the tax rates, right? And then you can go to Hasil, and then usually everyone, those who are working adults, this is where you submit your e-filing, right? So where you submit all your taxes, and then if there are any extra, then they will get it back to you. So if your annual income is about this, and then you will higher than this, then you will have to start paying taxes. Okay, so this is how it's done. Okay, so tax exemptions. So sometimes if you have medical and dental benefit, gratuity and all those things, death gratuity, then you don't need to pay tax. You can reduce your tax amount. Okay, so these are your income tax, right? So they do pay if you are taking care of your parent, right? If you are injured, if you are studying, if you have children below 18 years old, right? Spouse with no income and so on, right? So this is again some reliefs that they are given. So this is called RPGT, Real Property Gains Tax. So this is if you buy and sell property and then you get a profit. So you have to pay some tax over the profit here, right? And also the stamp duty. Okay. So this is your stamp duty rate, 1%, 2%, 3% based on your balance, right? S&P 10%, loan agreement 0.5%. So real property gain tax, if you sell your house less than 3 years, 30%. 4 years, 20%. If you keep it for 5 years, 15%. If you sell it after 6 years, you don't have to pay any RPGT, right? So this is just, now road tax is there. So this is what we pay, and we've been paying. If you're riding a motorbike or car or any vehicle in Malaysia, you have to pay your road tax, right? So those are your charges. Consumption taxes, we have GST is coming back probably, but at the moment we have SST, right? So those are consumption taxes, again, to increase our revenue. So these are the differences between that. So SST and GST, they are two different taxes. This is very narrow. GST means everybody will be forced to pay. SST, not everyone. This is cascading. No complete relief for export. This one got some relief. Transfer pricing, classification issue, sales tax and productivity has been declining over the years, but this will increase in tax productivity. So that is why people prefer GST when compared to SST, because GST will give you more revenue, right? So that is why you will see that now government is planning to bring back GST. So probably by, if not before the election or after the election, definitely we will have GST coming back in, because this will provide us with an extra income of almost 40 billion ringgit a year. So these are some of the things that you will have. SST versus GST, right? So you can actually go through that, right? All this, it does affect you. Things might get more expensive because of these taxes. You will see here, SST, if you buy the same thing at 10% versus GST 6%, right? So you will see from Pengilang, Pemborong, Peniaga, all the way to Pengguna, you pay 10 ringgit 60 cent. But for GST, you will be paying 28 ringgit and 50 cents because your GST, even though your GST is lower than your SST. So some of the calculation is there, right? But some of them will get back the charges that are being levied here, because what they want is they want to charge GST only at the consumer level, right? Not at this level. Okay, so those are some of the things that the government is also working on it. Okay, so this is a very famous examination question. So you should know what is the difference between GST and SST tax in Malaysia. And then if you are asked why is there talk about abolishing GST, this was a long time back. Why do you think they abolished, and now why are they bringing it back, right? So these are some things that you should know, right? So this is your GST and SST, which is better. So of course, GST is much better because it's a broad based. Everyone is charged but the concern is whether the government is going to use the revenue for better, what do you call that, to develop our country better, or are they going to use it for their own, what do you call that, cronies and all those things? So that is the question then, right? So that is on the first part. So we are done with the first part. Now we have next another 3 more parts to go. So maybe I'll give you a break of about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Is it okay? Then we'll finish up the rest. So I give you maybe 15 minutes break. Don't leave the group. And then now is 11:37. So maybe by 11:50, we will start again and finish up the rest. All right, so you can take a break and I'll see you in about 15 minutes time. Right. So let's continue. So now, can someone confirm you can hear me before I continue?
Yes,
sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So next we'll go into the inflation, productivity, cost of living, and types of financing. Right. Now, inflation and productivity, I think this is something that is going to affect everyone. Now, what do you mean by inflation? So I can give you a very, very clear example. May I know what is the price of roti canai today? Anybody can share? Roti canai kosong, eh?
120, sir.
1.20. So, will you believe that I've eaten a roti canai kosong as cheap as 30 cents? It used to be only 30 cents. I mean, it was even cheaper then. 30 cents roti canai. I've eaten that, and today you see that the same roti canai, right? We assume that it's the same size, same material. It is 120. Now from 30 cent, it has gone up to 120. That's like almost 4 times the price. Now, why is that so? One of the reasons for that is inflation. Right now, I still remember while having conversation with my grandfather, they used to have rotis for only 2 cents. So can you imagine, having something for 2 cents? Today, 2 cents, 1 cent has got no value at all. People used to work in plantations for 50 cents a day. And for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they used to spend only about 30 cents. And then they can still save about 20 cents, which was a lot of money. But today, even 50 cents is of no value. Now, may I know, okay, so that is one example. So 30 cent roti canai, it has gone up to 120. Now, what do you think is going to be in the next, let's say by 2040? How much do you think roti canai is going to cost? Can anyone predict?
5 ringgit.
5 ringgit.
You can get canai at KLCC, sir.
sir.
Yeah, 5 ringgit, 6 ringgit, 10 ringgit, who knows? And that is all because of inflation. Now, inflation is basically, it's an increase of price or it costs more to purchase the same item, right? So that is due to money inflation. Increase in money supply, the currency is losing its purchasing power. So you can't, the same 1 ringgit that you had 10 years ago is not the same 1 ringgit that you have today. So today's value of 1 ringgit is much, much lower than the value of 1 ringgit that you had 10 years ago, right? Because the money is losing purchasing power. And because of that, you need to pay more, right? Now, just like how when you were going to school, how much money you used to take to school? Pocket money. Sekolah rendah, sekolah menengah.
2 ringgit.
2 ringgit.
Yeah.
Do you know how much people are taking to their schools today? Primary school, I'm talking.
Around 10, right?
5 to 10 ringgit. That's right.
Yeah.
Do you know how much I used to take and go to my school times during what do you call that, primary school?
50 cents.
30 cents. That's it. 30 cents, I can buy a bowl of mee and a cup of drink. That's it. And your children will be taking to school how much, you think?
10 to 15.
15 or 20 ringgit, so that's how inflation, right? So as long as your inflation is controlled, it is okay. Now, Malaysia inflation, ours is still in a very, very controlled stage. But if you compare it to Zimbabwe, now we gave an example of roti canai just now from 30 cents, it went up to $1.20. Now in Zimbabwe, because they had hyperinflation, because of that hyperinflation, their roti canai from 30 cents, guess went up to how much? When you have hyperinflation.
10 ringgit.
5 ringgit.
No, their roti canai went up to almost a few million of their dollars, because the inflation caused their money to lose a lot of value. And you will see that if you Google in Zimbabwe's currency, they have a currency of $1 billion. And that is the reason for it. So you have Zimbabwe, you have Venezuela, where the inflation is so bad that their money has lost most of its value. Right. So those are some of the things that we need to be aware of. Right. So you have an article here, inflasi naik lebih pantas. So you see that in Malaysia, our inflation is only about 2.75%, still okay. Sri Lanka inflation has gone up by almost 140%. 140% compared to 2.75%, right? Of course, this was in 2011, but even now our inflation rate is only about 2 to 4%, right? So it's not so bad, but remember that it does happen. And we do lose the value of our money, right? So you can see here, escalating cost of living and decreasing purchasing power. So in 1978, if you're a fresh grad, you get 1,100. You can buy a 2-story house in TTDIs for 62,000. Imagine that, 2-story house, 62,000. Now 350,000 is 2012. Today, I don't think you can get. This is more than 500,000. So you can get a Opel Continental car for 12,000 ringgit, and today Mazda 6, 178,000, and so on, right? So last time nasi campur ayam campur drink 2 ringgit, and today you will see that it's about this much. So things has gone up from 1978 to 2012. Cars are has become 14 times more expensive. Food is 4 times more expensive now, and houses are 6 times more expensive. Right, so things are actually quite. I'm not saying that it's bad, but as the trend is showing, we are losing our purchasing power. Right, so these are some of the things that you need to look at. So this one is basically giving you working hours required to buy, let's say, 1 Big Mac. Right, so in Malaysia you need to work 41 minutes. Right, but in Sydney 14, 12, 13, 14. The reason is because their wages are very high. They pay their employee high wages. Right, so here in 1 kilogram rice you need to work 32 minutes, but in London you need to work only for 8 minutes. You'll get enough money to buy 1 kilogram rice. Right, iPod Nano you need to work 52 hours. In New York you need to work only 9 hours because you get more per hour there as compared to what you get in Malaysia, right? So it's a price index, relates prices in a specific year, month or quarter. So you will see that the government will release this consumer price index, right? And then based on 400 goods and services, so how the prices fluctuates, and then they will calculate out what is the inflation rate, okay? So it's the annual rate of increase in the price level. Disinflation is a term used to denote a slowdown in the rate of inflation. Deflation, we've experienced deflation after the last general election, where there is an annual rate of decrease in the price level, right? So this is also not good, okay? Because if you have decrease in price level, then a lot of people will start making losers, okay? So you have demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and inflation can slow economic growth, redistribute income and wealth, and cause economic activity to contract. So this is an example of UK's inflation. So you will see that from 2000 to 2009, they've been hovering around. So it has gone up to almost 5%. And then you have this deflation. So you will see that this has gone down to negative. So deflation is a fall in the price level of economy. It means there will be a negative inflation rate. So this is a negative inflation rate. Okay. So CPI, RPI is retail price index. CPI is basically your consumer price index, which includes the mortgage interest payment, right? RPI means it includes that. So inflation, it just means that there's a sustained increase of the price level. Main causes of inflation are either excess aggregate demand, economy is growing too fast, or cost push factor, supply side factors. So demand pull inflation is also that, right? Cost push inflation, rising wages, right? So that can also cause inflation. Import prices, raw material prices, if it goes up, it will also increase your inflation rate. Profit push inflation, like what we've discussed just now. If your productivity is declining, so that is why Malaysia is emphasizing a lot on increasing its productivity, so that we can keep what you call that inflation at bay. And then if the government puts up taxes, this will also lead to higher prices. And then if you have higher prices, of course, inflation will also go up. So what else could cause inflation? Rising house prices. So as you can see in Malaysia, the house prices has been going up steadily. Shah Alam, when I first came to Shah Alam, houses in Section 7 were not more than 200,000. I'm talking about double-story houses. Even in Bukit Jelutong, which was a new township, the new houses were going for 200,000. Similarly, in Satya Alam. So the double-story houses were going for 200,000. But today, it's almost touching 700,000 to $1 million ringgit. Right? So that can cause inflation as well. Now, there's a tendency by central government to print more money so that you can have more money circulating in the market. Right? So when there is not enough money, so what the government does is they just print more money and then redistribute it into the economy. So this is actually not good, right? Because this can lead to hyperinflation. So a lot of these developing countries, they are in trouble because of this issue. Okay, so those are some of the things. And then you have inflationary growth is unsustainable. Inflation discourages investment. So if you have look at Sri Lanka, so because their inflation rate is so high, people don't want to invest, and then it will decline your international competitiveness. You can't compete with many nations, and it can reduce your real incomes, right? And can erode savings. So when you have inflation, your savings, then you will take out and then use it for some other things. So it will erode that. And if people suffer from inflation, they will impact their future decision, right? So then they will not, what you call that, they'll be very careful with their spending, right? So economic cause of unemployment. So you can see here, if people are unemployed, inflation can cause that to happen, right? And this will cause much lower income to everyone, because the moment you have unemployment, so the income level also drops accordingly. You will have psychological cost. You'll have social problems related to it, and then you have higher governmental borrowing. So government will tend to borrow from IMF or from other institutions, and then this will have negative spiral. So higher unemployment will lead to lower spending in the economy, leading to lower growth. The threat and fear of unemployment may be sufficient to reduce spending, right? So business cycles, as you can see, there are times where you have good economic growth. There are times when you have bad economic growth. So when you are doing good, of course, you need to basically save, so that when the cycle is during the downtrend, at least you will have some resources to invest back again, right? So those are based on business cycles. You also have productivity. It can refer to amount of acceptable work employees do for each dollar that they earn, or for the given amount of resources. Resources here can be in terms of time, right? So productivity is also used to compare the competitiveness of companies and countries, right? So nothing but your output over input, right? So if your productivity is high, that means with the similar input, you can provide a lot more output. So when you have a lot more output with the similar input, then your productivity goes up higher. And this will then actually help to boost the economy of the country again, right? So this is some other definitions of productivity. You have multi-factor productivity. So this one is under service item times price divided by labor, campur material, campur overhead, right? So these are some examples. So this one I will leave it to you. So this is looking at on how to calculate multi-factor productivity for year 1 and year 2, right? So you have everything based on the formula that is given here. you can substitute it, right? Because of time constraint, I will not ask you to do it, but I believe when you want to do the revision, you'll be able to do this on your own, right? Now, how to improve productivity? Very easy. So increase the amount of output without a similar increase in inputs. Decrease cost without decreasing the amount of output. Cost cutting methods, improve methods or the way things get done. Reduce overhead, right? Cut down people. Minimize your waste, including idle time and physical resources. Installing modern equipment and minimizing tardiness, absenteeism, and also your turnover. Turnover means you have new workers coming in. So today new worker came, 2 months later he resigned, then another new one comes, another 1 month time he leaves, and so on. So that is a very bad turnover. So you want to retain and ensure that your employees are loyal to you so that you have a good turnover. So improving productivity, many employees are fearful of productivity because usually companies, they take a shortcut, they lay off employee, right? So if they lay off employee, so that is actually, in a way, it helps in productivity, but people then will become unemployed, right? You don't want that as well. So you want to give extra work to the remaining employees. So this extra work, if you don't pay them, no overtime also, I don't think anybody will enjoy doing this, right? So there are several constraints on productivity that limit the impact of supervisor or even higher management. So your management limitations. So sometimes management cannot impose because you have rules and regulation. Sometimes you need to look at the employee attitudes and skills, government regulations, and union. Some places they have very strong union, so you cannot just bully the workers as you wish, right? So these are some other constraints as well. So you can actually have a look. Okay. So government regulations, as I said, there are laws. You cannot force someone to work for more than 12 hours a day, right, without a break, because that is against the law, right? So you can ask someone to work overtime, but if it's more than 12 hours, then 12 hours, 16 hours, then it becomes a problem, right? So these are unions. So unions are also there. Unions are there to protect the interests of their workers and colleagues. So if the union agrees, then it's okay. But most of the time, if the union does not agree, then you have no choice, right? So the company can't do as what they wish. Okay. So unemployment in the labor force. So unemployment rate, as you can see, if your unemployment rate is high, what it does tell you about your labor force, right? So you can look at the US labor force does not include the entire population, but only those who are at least 16 years old, employed or unemployed and looking for the work. So a working age person who is not looking for work is considered voluntarily unemployed and it's not included into the labor force. So these are some of the definitions that you have, right? So that was on inflation and productivity. Now we go for cost of living. Now cost of living here is affecting everyone, including you and me. So it's how much you pay for housing, gas, food, clothing, and other everyday items, right? Including your data plan and all those things. So those are your cost of living. So it's a useful measurement that allows you to compare expenses between locations and over time. And most cost of living calculators give you a direct dollar-to-dollar comparison between your location and another. So now, if you look at petrol, one liter in Malaysia, if you put RON 95, it's only about 2 ringgit something. But the same petrol, if you go to Singapore, if you convert it, it's almost about 9 ringgit. 9 ringgit, right? So cost of living, then you can say that, it's cheaper here than to purchase it from Singapore. So that's one example. So the cost of living index gives you the percentage difference in the cost of living between your location and another. Okay. So this is how it, the factors that influence cost of living, right? From city to city. Of course, Kuala Lumpur, cost of living is high. If you go Kota Baru, cost of living is very low, right? Even rental there is cheap, right? So here, maybe for 600 ringgit, you get a room, but over there, 600 ringgit, you can get a bungalow, right? So these are some of the things. So you can see here, Honolulu, half gallon of milk cost over $3, right? But this is nothing compared to San Francisco, where a large cup of specialty coffee can cost $14, nearly $10 more than the national average prices. Okay, so these are some of the things. Housing demand. Okay, so 25% under projected demand averages. Tech companies. Okay, so availability of high-paying jobs, world-class and entertainment, cultural institution draws people to certain regions of the country, regardless of how expensive it is. Right, so Kuala Lumpur is expensive, but you see every day so many people come and stay here because there are so many opportunities available, right? So there are a lot of factors that influence. So it's not just maybe one of the reason why Kuala Lumpur is such an interesting place is because you have many job opportunities here, many companies here, so that they are paying you well, so you can offset the high cost of living in Kuala Lumpur. Another one is low rate of unemployment, right? So cities with low unemployment rates can be expensive to live in, right? Because everyone is working. So when everyone is working, they got enough income to dispose, so that you don't have to worry about your cost of living issue. So gas prices. So you will see here Los Angeles. So not like Malaysia, they are a country in US. The gas prices differs compared to their location. So Los Angeles is about this much. Louisiana, Mississippi is only maybe slightly half of that. And because of this low gas price, your cost of living can be lower, right? So these are some of the factors: rising food prices, slow wage growth, GST, all influence cost of your living. So they are consumer price index related, right? So your inflation, again, determines your cost of living, right? So highest cost of living, you can see here, Singapore is number 4. You'll be surprised. Singapore, Hong Kong, Zurich, Angola, right? Geneva, Shanghai, Beijing, Seoul, Bern, and so on. So all these places, they have very high cost of living. I would say they're one of the highest, right? So lowest, these are the countries with the lowest. So you will see that, probably because even their economy is not doing so well. So definitely their cost of living will also be very, very low, right? So cost of living in Malaysia is 38% lower than in United States. Rent in Malaysia is almost 70% lower than US, right? So you can see that we are still blessed, right? It's one of the cheapest country to live in Malaysia, right? So these are your cost of living in different cities in Malaysia, right? So you will see that Kuching has got one of the lowest, whereas I believe JB, Johor Bahru and Kuala Lumpur has got one of the highest cost of living, right? So these are some of the things that you can actually go through the statistics department and you'll be able to download that, okay? So percentage of overall spending, every dollar budget, where your money goes, right? Housing, 25 to 35%, your bills, food, 10 to 15%, transportation, health, insurance, personal, recreation, savings, and so on, right? So you can calculate your own cost of living. So as a student, so you can see your rental, how much you are paying, food, how much in a month, transportation, how much you pay for petrol, phone bill, your electricity bill. This one maybe not now. Once you start working and saving for wedding and so on. So what is the percentage? So that becomes your cost of living, right? So this is what is being suggested. So Sewa Rumah should be about 30% of your pay, 10% of your pay should be capped, 15% pay for your loans, 5% for insurance, 5% for your transport, 10% for your bills, 25% for your groceries and so on, right? So this is your budgeting 50-30-20 rule, right? 50-30-20 rule means 50% of your income towards necessities like your housing and bills, 20% paying off your debt, right? 30% can be allocated to wants like dining or entertainment, right? So this is another one. You can go through this 20-4-10 rule, right? The home ownership 20% rule. You can have a look. What is it? Right? 6-month emergency fund rule. Make sure once you start working, you always have this 6 months emergency fund. Meaning to say that if suddenly you have no job, at least for the next 6 months, you have enough money to sustain you. So that is what they mean by 6 months emergency fund rule, right? Meaning to say that if you are earning 2,000 a month, then you should have about 12,000 ringgit in your bank as your 6 month emergency fund. Right? So that will sustain you in 6 months, so that within that 6 months, when you go and look for a job, you should be able to get it within that 6 months, and you will have some money to spend. So these are some of your what you call that B40 who stays in what you call that low-cost apartments. So you will see that many of them, they are struggling. One of the main reason is because they got no saving, right? So savings are very important, because times when you have difficulty, the savings will be able to actually help you, right? So government support on cost of living, you see that, you know, BRIM and all those things was given to you. And then this is AKPK is also there to help you. One of the most critical expenditure for the young Malaysian generation is the wedding. So weddings are becoming very, very expensive. And then this is causing a lot of distress in young couples, right? So it used to be a very, very simple event. But now, because of modern requirements, so this has become a very expensive and exclusive event, right? So maybe you can actually have a look and think about on how to reduce that. So this is how you survive in KL with 10 ringgit. So can you do that? So you can have, you know, transport 5 ringgit, nasi lemak breakfast, roti kosong, air kosong for lunch, dinner just instant cup. So this is not healthy to eat this every day. Or you can have this, right? 450, mihun bungkus, Maggi goreng, night is cream bun. Or you can have this office biscuit. Go to office, lunch you eat this cream bun, and then you save 250. So at the end of the day, if you do this every day, it's not going to be healthy to you, because you're not getting enough nutrition, right? So those are some of the things that you need to be aware of. So nak simpan 2,000 setahun bagaimana? So you have many ways, right, to do savings. So it all depends whether you want to do it or not, right? So you can always cut down on the unnecessary things. Nak simpan tapi gaji tak cukup, usually those are excuses, but if you want to keep, you can keep, right? So these are some of the ways that they tell you on how you can actually save money, right? So you can plan your meals, right? Shop smart, plan your holidays early, book your tickets early, invest in reusable items, buy secondhand, spend quality time at home, head to the library, cultivate reading habits, be energy smart, share travel to cut costs, use a spreadsheet to budget your household finances. So these are some of the ways, right? So the other thing is whether do you really need a car, right? So always ask yourself that, because car is basically a liability, right? It brings once you buy a car, the value depreciates, right? So a car today worth 100,000, in 5 years, it's not going to be 100,000. It's going to lose its value. So whether it's worth buying a car or not, so things like that, you need to be really asking you a question. Now this one, wedding, as I've mentioned, how much you want to spend, 100,000, 200,000, right? I've seen couples spending a few 100,000 for their wedding, right? And then within 3 months, they were divorced. So, you know, but you still need to settle the loan that you've taken for your wedding, right? So things like that, you can actually have a budget, stick to the budget. You marry off season where you get things for cheap. You can look for alternate venues. You don't have to go for very high flying venues. Look for good bargains and be flexible, right? So you don't have to. Do you need a diamond ring, right? So if you really need, do you need a big diamond ring? So do you need a big, you know, Lamborghini and all those things for that? And then do you need Gucci, Armani for your attire and all those things? So things like that, you need to ask yourself, right? And then most of you are with PTPTN. So you need to ensure that you pay this back as well, right? So you need to manage it right? So the economic part you need to do. Once you get your bonus, are you going to spend it all, or are you going to keep it somewhere, right? So you can have some money for travel, put some investment, reduce your debt, go for emergency fund, year-end sale, festive seasons, right? Back to school, buy things for them, financial management, learn about all this, and then 19 cara selamatkan duit anda. So all that actually you can actually read, and then one of the things that you can do is kurangkan merokok, right? Kurangkan merokok. So don't have to what do you call that? This is becoming expensive, right? So ukur baju di badan sendiri, don't have to spend more than what you are earning, right? Kawal tabiat boros, right? Banyak menggunakan pengangkutan awam, kurangkan beriadah di pusat membeli belah. All that actually helps you to reduce it, right? So these are another one. So you can go budget, cuti budget, right? How to go for budget holidays. There are a lot, right? So it's just that whether you have done your research or not. Okay. So this is for school children, those who want to go back to school. So how you do it. And then everyone is going to be old. So once you are old, you cannot work. And when you cannot work, and that is where you get all the diseases, all the penyakit. So you need money nowadays in order to treat. So where are you going to get the money from? Right? So you need to plan from now. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're still young, no need to keep for your rainy days or your retirement. No, you start now, right? So things like that. So that was on a cost of living. Now we go for types of finances, right? So these are breakdown of property cost, right? So if you have a house price of 100,000, 10% is 10,000 SPA legal fee. And then this is your total entry cost, right? So these are loans actually. So you can see that they are cost of education, especially when you're talking about university. It's not going to be cheap as what you're paying nowadays, right? So universities in UK, you will see that in 2016, if it cost 208,000, 18 years later, it will cost almost about 400,000. University of Australia is also same. Now, local university, we are talking about, let's say UKM, right? So 53,000, and you will see that 18 years from now is 90,000. So this one is talking about your children, right? When they grow up, you're going to get married, you have children, family, right? So how much are you going to save for them? So that, you know, they'll have enough money for them to study. Right? Where are you going to save? So these are the many places where you can save your money, right? So this is for children's education. This is in Canada, right? So this is how much you need in Canada if you are studying post-secondary education in Canada. Annual cost almost about $20,000. So where the money goes, you can see, right? So of course you are not going to, so this is given to the students there. Alcohol, this is more on a leisure, right? Go for cinema and all those things. But you will see that this is the breakdown. 34% goes for your tuition fee, right? So your finances can be either from internal sources or external sources. So internal sources, you have your own investment, your own profit, sale of stock, sale of fixed assets, debt collection, and so on. So this is money which comes from owner, your own saving, right? So maybe in the form of startup capital used when the business is setting up, maybe in the form of additional capital, perhaps used for expansion. This is long-term source of finance, right? So advantages, you don't have to repay them. There is no interest in paying, right? So there's only a limit that you can invest because it's your own money, right? So this source of finance is only available for a business which has been trading for more than 1 year, right? So you can see the advantages. So sale of stock. So saham, kalau you jual saham. So quick way of raising finance by selling of stock, it reduces the cost associated with holding them. Disadvantages means business will have to take a reduced price for the stock, right? And then sale of fixed asset. So your houses and all those things. So it's a good way to raise finances from an asset that is no longer needed. Disadvantages means some businesses are unlikely to have surplus asset to sell and can be slow method of raising finance. So debt collection, no additional cost in getting this finance. Right? Disadvantages means the risk that debts owed can go bad and not be repaid. Right? So external sources, you can go for bank loan or overdraft, additional partners. You can look for share issue, leasing, hire purchase, mortgage, trade credit, government grants, and so on. So these are all external sources. So if you go for bank loan, that is the easiest. You set repayment, spread over a period of time, which is good for budgeting. And it can be expensive due to interest payment, right? And then they might require some security for the loan. So this is bank overdraft, right? So you basically take out money more than what you have in the account, right? So for a short period of time. So it's only for short period and cheaper than a bank loan. So, but there is an interest over it and can be expensive if used over a longer period of time. So that is on the bank overdraft. Now, additional partners, you don't have to repay them. There's no interest. That is the advantage. But disadvantages means you dilute the control of partnership. Last time you were the only owner. Now you bring in another two. So there are three owners. So your profit also divided by 3, right? So profit will be split in more ways. Share issue, you don't have to repay them. No interest is payable. And this is basically profits will be paid out as dividends to more shareholders. Ownership of the company could change hands, right? So those are the things. Leasing is more like renting. Businesses can have the use of up-to-date equipment immediately. Payments are spread over a period of time, which is good for budgeting. The disadvantage is it can be expensive. Asset belongs to the finance company, right? So you are just leasing. So a lot of private colleges, if you see, they don't own the building. They lease the building from someone, right? So the asset does not belong to them. So in the long run, because they are paying rental every month, it can be expensive to operate. So hire purchase is like your loan that you buy for your car and all those things, right? So it can be expensive in the long run instead of buying it with cash. But you know, if you want to buy a car, 50, 60,000, where are you going to get the cash from? So that is why you go for hire purchase, right? Mortgage is like a house, right? So you mortgage the house and then you get some money out of it, right? So you can then repay it based on the interest that is being charged. Trade credit is also there, right? So typical trade credit period is about 30 days. So you can sell the goods first and pay for them later, right? It's good for cash flow. So no interest is charged, but you have to give discount for cash payment will be lost. And then businesses need to carefully manage their cash flow to ensure they will have money available when the debt is due to be paid, right? So this one is trade credit. So you have like, you know, you sell the item now, you give like 40 or 50 days for them to pay you back, right? So those are the things. Government grants are there. One good thing about government grant is you don't have to pay them back, but they have a lot of conditions, right? And not all businesses eligible for this grant, right? Factors affecting choice of source of finance. So what's the purpose and how long you want to have that finance and the amount, how much money your business need and who is the owner and what is the size of your business. Okay. So this is another issue that we have with everyone today. So this is looking at paying back your loan, right? So you will see that almost 40% they don't pay loan on a regular basis, right? 60% they pay selalu, kadang-kadang, jarang-jarang, tidak pernah is 6.9%. So then you can be blacklisted. So once you are blacklisted, then you can, if you don't pay your loan, sometimes you can be declared bankrupt as well, right? So these are OPR and loan. So now you've heard they've increased the OPR rate, overnight interest rate set by Bank Negara. So it is a rate at which a bank lends money to other bank, right? So it affects the employment, economic growth, and inflation. So that is why you see when the economy is not doing well, they will reduce this rate. So then your loans become cheaper. But when your economy is doing very well, this rate will go up. So then your loans become expensive. So it's in a way, it controls the economic growth and inflation. So it's an indicator of country's overall economic health and banking system. So if your OPR is high, so your economy is doing well, bank is doing well, and so on. Right? In the event that cash withdrawal exceeded the amount of cash available, the particular bank will need to borrow cash from other banks at the prevailing OPR. Right? So these are the impact on the borrowers, and a borrower need to have all the information needed. Okay. So that is on financing. So this is calculator apps that are available. So you can actually download this from, I believe, even from your iPhone, right? Apple, and also from your Android apps, right? So these are things that are available. You can put it on your mobile phone, and then with that, you track your finances, where your money is going, right? So this will give you an idea on how you are spending your money, right? Where is the money going? Because usually, if you don't keep a tab on where your finances are, where are you spending your money, and usually that's where you tend to lose, right? And tend to overspend, and sometimes tend to overindulge in things that you can't afford, right? So this helps you. So these are financial apps. So Good Budget financial calculator is also there. Google Sheet is also good if you want to have what you call that on a spreadsheet, how your money is spent. So Mint, okay. So it gives you, developed by Intuit, the same company that does TurboFax Financial. Moneyfy is one of the most simple budget apps, right? Money Manager is also there. So My Budget Book, okay, it's there. My Finance, Prism Bills, and all those things are there, right? So Excel spreadsheet is also available. So you can use these commands to help you to plan for your, what you call that, finances. The reason why we are telling you this is very simple. If you look at the statistics of people declared bankrupt out there, right? Majority of them are of the age, those who have just started working, right? And what it tells that the young generation who have started working, they are not able to control their finances, right? So this is one of the reasons why we are exposing you to all these things, so that once you start working, money starts coming into your pocket, you become responsible, and you don't just splurge, or you don't overspend compared to what you are earning. So if you are earning 2004, it doesn't mean that you need to spend the whole 2004 in that month, right? If you can't afford a car yet, so it doesn't matter, because your pay is going to go up in 2 or 3 years time. So then maybe after that you can afford a car, right? So you can take loans, but remember, loans, one of the conditions for loan is you have to pay them back, right? It's not free. And majority of the young adults who are declared bankrupt, they are bankrupt because of credit card debts, right? So you can get credit cards easily those days, and then they used to charge to the max. And when it came time to settle the credit cards, they were not able to settle the credit card bills, and the finances kept piling up, and it will come to a point they can't settle, and then they have to be declared bankrupt. Once you're bankrupt, then it becomes very difficult for you, right? So finance is very important. Nobody teaches you. You need to learn how to manage your finances on your own. But what we are exposing you here is just the basic financial tools that are available for you to manage your finances, right? So this hopefully can help you to look into managing your finances, so that, you know, if you start doing a business and you become a millionaire, even then you need to manage your finances. You see a lot of millionaire becomes poor due to their bad decisions, or due to their bad financial illiteracy, right? So we don't want that to happen. We want you to have a very sound financial knowledge, right? So that was on the subsequent part. Now this is also there in your what you call that notes. So you can actually go through this. This is Belanjawanku by EPF. So it tells you on how to look for who you are. So let's say you are single, public transport user, or if you are married without children, with one child, with two child, or whether you are elderly couple. So you can choose. And then if you are single, if let's say you start working in a month, this is how much you need, right? If you are using public transport, nah? But if you are driving a car, then perhaps you will need 2490 a month, right? If you are married without children, then you see your commitment goes up. With one child goes up, with two children it goes up. You need this much money, right? Elderly couple, retired, you will need this much money, right? So this is something that is given. So these are your expenses. All these are your expenses, right? So what is my estimated budget? So single, this is where your money goes, right? This is where your money goes. Don't spend anything more than that. You don't need it, right? So housing, you pay maybe renting a room or renting a house, right? Healthcare, transport, utilities. This is if you have a car, you pay your loan, right? The rest are almost same, right? Married couple. So you have with one child, with two children. Of course, your childcare and all those things increases. Right? Elderly couple, these are the requirements for elderly couple, right? They need about 3090, right? So these are what you call that Belanjawanku in Klang Valley 2019. So you can actually read all of that. So it's very comprehensive. It tells you how to spend and what are the ways that you can actually save money, right? So this is the chief executive officer. So they came up from there, right? And the last one is here. This is again cost of living, right? So motivations of a living wage. So you see here in a living wage how they define it. In Canada, sufficient income to cover reasonable costs, healthy child development, no severe financial stress. So our living wage in Malaysia currently has increased to 1,005, right? 1,500 ringgit a month. Now, do you think that's enough for this? According to the definition in Canada, in New Zealand, ability to pay for the necessities of life, a life with dignity, United Kingdom, opportunity to spend more quality time and all those things. And then when you come back here, how much you need? Even a single with a public transport user, you need a minimum of 1,800. And our minimum wage is only about 1,005, right? So perhaps we are not there yet, right? So this is how different countries, they evaluate how much everyone should be paid based on this definition, right? If you are in UK, should be able to spend more quality time with children. You don't have to work OT overtime all the time. Some savings for an emergency should be there, and no concern about affording the basics, food item, right? So these are some of the things that you have in Malaysia. So you can see, right? So all that is there in the, so this is estimates of living wage in Kuala Lumpur. So single adult is 2,700. Couple without a child and couple with two children. So it's quite expensive, but that is the what do you call it, suggested living, right? So up to 27% earning below living wage in Kuala Lumpur in 2016. So you can see that it's very skewed, right? Very, very skewed, right? A lot of them are here, but you will see that there are people who are earning more than 50,000 or so, but it's very, very, very small number, okay? Right, so these are some of the statistics. You can have a look. So I will not spend and bore you more with that. So I think that's it for today. So if you have any question, you may ask. One note to the 2B class. Make sure you sign in your attendance in UFuture, all right? And if there is nothing, I will end the class. But if you have any question, feel free to ask if you have any question. Kalau tak ada question, just say tak ada question. We can end the class here.
Tak ada question.
All
I don't
okay?
have-
So far, no question.
All right. So there is going to be one question coming up for your finals. It's not final exam, but for your test 2 from this chapter. Now it can be anything on GDP. It can be anything on productivity. It can be anything on supply and demand. So I suggest that you go to UFuture. There are sample test papers there. Go and have a look what type of question is being asked based on this chapter, so that you can actually do a proper revision, right? Because test 2, definitely there's going to be one question coming up from here, right? For today, from today's lecture, right? Because there are only 4 questions: sustainability, today's lecture, and then finance, and then the last one is the law. These are the questions that are going to come out for your test 2. Okay. All right. Any other question?
No, doctor.
All right, kalau tak ada, then thank you for being in the class, and then you can adjourn and then have your lunch, and then I'll see you soon.
All right, thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.